IVM.
Hi guys, what?
Hey, yes.
Uh,
So this is another. So welcome to the new normal. This is how we are recording.
have you been listening to our episodes, like the ones we put out?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I just feel like it's so like it's
It
like
was
a home.
so
It's like
weird.
a
How did it
home.
start?
No, I mean
It's
it's
like-
like a home conversation. It's like a conversation over like I don't know chakna and some like
No,
some-
don't get me wrong. I feel like our conversations have been better than ever, honestly. Like
Yeah,
even
they're
the
so
kind of
personal.
even the kind of messages and all, I get that. But every time I cringe, and it's not you, it's me. I'm like every time I hear how I sound in the starting of an episode, I'm like, another, here
Have
we
you-
go again.
Have you watched? Okay, I think you might say no, like vehemently, but there's a show called Shira, like
Okay.
Shira and the Princesses of Pa.
Is it anime?
It's- yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's basically okay. So I just have to say, you remind me so much of this character called Mermista because, especially in the beginning of every episode, because Mermista's entry point to any conversation is. And you do that every episode.
This is
Like-
you know the number of people that tell me this, my friends and all, that Farad, you can literally just communicate in heaves and sighs and complaints. And I'm like, that is so true. That is so true. You know who I relate to the most right now? Which character? God, it was, first of all, let me get this clear. I wasn't watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills
Oh
on
my
a
god.
Monday morning at 9 a.m., but I was. And I think I'm a Lisa Vanderpump, minus all the elegance and the beauty and all of that. But I totally feel like that's me. Like everything is a snarky comment, and every time she's on screen, she says something. I was like, that's exactly what I was thinking. So, from Shira to Real Housewives.
Yeah. Okay, so let's quickly
Do it. What are
do a
you
check
eating?
on how you are.
What are you
am I
eating?
I'm eating grapes.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
Eat grapes.
Morning fruits. Yeah. So how are you doing now? Are you doing better? What have you been doing to feel better?
Nothing. I'm not feeling any better. I'm not feeling any worse. I'm just in limbo. That's it. Like, I'm trying to process how to tell people how I'm doing. And
I know it's a difficult because your first instinct usually is why the fuck are you even asking me that question? You know, because I get pissed off when
I stopped asking people, how are you?
yeah. I know what you mean. But here's the thing. I want to ask you, what are you? Because my sense is this. I know a lot of us are coasting right now. Like we are at the same level, but we are at the same level and not slipping under because we are doing certain things to ourselves, for ourselves. And I think that's what's keeping us even barely afloat and coasting. So is there anything you are doing?
I don't know if I'm doing anything in the present continuous tense, but the more time that passes by, I think there is something I did unknowingly or subconsciously when all of this started, which has sort of, so basically, I feel like the moment I found out that, okay, there's a pandemic and it's bigger than what I'm making it to be, and this is going to be like the next few months of our lives, and money is going to be tough, and job is going to be, all those things. I feel I subconsciously just wrestled myself into some kind of submission. And it's like, how do we say, when you meet with an accident and your limb just gets chopped off, your brain just makes it numb. I feel like I've done that a little, and I'm just surviving on that numbness right now. And now that I feel that, oh my God, why do I need therapy again? And why do I this again? Is because the numbness is wearing off and I'm starting to feel the pain. And one of the most beautiful things that I love about myself, but I also hate about myself, is that I feel too much and I allow myself to feel too much. So I'm feeling the pain of it right now. Just mentally. I don't mean to be dramatic, but other than that, I don't know if I'm doing anything to like, wow, self-care. I know, I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are because you are someone who works and you're someone who's dedicated to self-improvement. So I'd rather know what you are doing so that I can take some advice for you, from you.
So one is, okay, so I think, like one of the things that I kind of figured was the fact that, and it also took me a couple of conversations with my strength to get there. But the idea that, in this journey is going to have ups and downs, and I will feel shit, and I will feel good at times. And then again, I'll go like, it'll be, an ebb and flow. Yeah. But, the only way in which, and this is where, it was like a weird epiphany, and like, I'm sure a lot of people had this realization far earlier and far more easily than I did. But the fact that it could be an ebb and flow only and only if I did certain things proactively, and I did those things not as a checklist and as a competitive thing to do. And it just needed to give me pleasure. It just needed to be a moment where, or an activity which just made me smile. And it could be something as simple as, I don't know, just like smoking that one cigarette, allowing myself that pleasure. And so that's one of the realizations I had. And once I had that realization, it kind of helped because it almost became necessary for me for every, like on a day-to-day basis, to do something that just made me feel better without the agenda of achievement. And that almost detaching all these activities from this sense of achievement was very, very important for me. Because the moment you put that achievement filter to say, oh, I'm going to do these many whatever, like, if I'm working out, then I'm going to do this much, or if I'm cooking, I'm going to do like a 30 days of cooking. The moment I detached from that sense of I've got to prove myself, that just was really helpful in making me feel better, feel like, I deserved just that pure joy. And pure joy is, very, very detached from this competitive sort of feeling of, oh, I have to, like, this is what I need to achieve. I think that was the beginning of it. And yeah, that's why I keep telling anyone who's, because, this is a moment where, like me as a 32-year-old, obviously, if I'm facing so many issues, if I'm kind of, going into a funk so often, then I sort of look over a team of odd 30, 40, people at work. And a lot of them are 21, 22-year-olds who just barely entered the workforce. I can only imagine what it must be for them. So that has kind of put things in perspective. So I keep telling them that, do something that makes you feel good. And it could be something as simple as eat a little bit of chocolate, and, it's just
treat yourself.
Yeah.
The thing is, I've battled with manic depression for years. And this is honestly one of the things pre-pandemic, it's taught to you that, hey, there will be days where you feel like you're shackled to your bed and you're not going to be able to get out, fuck alone to like, sometimes you even stall on taking a piss or a shit, for like hours and hours. You don't even get up to like fucking brush your teeth or shower. I've had days like that. I'm sure a lot of people have had days like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it is told that put not a milestone, but set one thing, and it can be the most minuscule thing. Just wipe your laptop screen. Let's say that's, that's an example. Or literally, I can't off the top of my head, but like cut your toenails. That's it. And it's not that, hey, if you do that one thing, your day was worth it. Don't stop doing this, because it's a trap. It's an easy trap to fall in where another day I did not do anything. Another day I did not do anything, when actually you realize that, hey, doing something even minuscule or minute can also mean something. You know what I
Of
mean?
course, yeah.
So that was already taught. But you know what's happening again with me is that, you know, there was this one particular phase after the pandemic, the newness of it was wearing off. Like I'm saying, 3-4 weeks, all these motivational messages like
Yeah.
started popping up that, hey, it's okay if you don't write your next big book in this pandemic. It's okay if you don't work out. You know, that kind of messaging.
Yeah.
It felt nice knowing that you are out of the rat race right now, right? But what is happening is when you combine it with all the things that are happening now, like for example, oh, just because the economy is shit, they've opened up everything when actually the cases are the worst. So we are looking at more months of maybe like turmoil and whatever and all of that. It's starting to feel like, okay, for how long can I not be manic depressed now? Because I am already there. I'm not gonna lie. Like even sometimes if you and I'll give you an honest example. When today we decided that let's record this at 10 a.m., what started happening is I'm back on my medication. One of my medication gives me deep sleep. You know what I mean? And it's, yeah, sure, I wake up like murderous and shit, but it gets me through the rest of the day. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like I don't know what is what right now. I try to make sense of it. I also obviously cut myself a lot of slack because see, for me, and you know me a little, for me, I achieve good food every day. Let's say. If I have to say one small thing every day, oh, I do like great 3 meals for myself every day. You know what I mean? But it's not cutting it anymore. I can no longer be like, oh shit, there's another day that's gone by where I did not apply for that job. Oh, another day has gone by where I did not do this particular thing. Another day has gone by where I did not just meditate. You know, that's starting to happen. And as aware as I am of it, that this is just me trying to, in some way, make myself feel bad for not having done a particular thing. It's this, I always feel like it's like dipping a finger in a lake full of piranhas. You know what I mean? You've not fallen into it, but there are like all these fucking thousands of little fish are just eating away at like one little part of you that's not doing okay. So I don't know if that's a good visual analogy, but I feel like that's what I'm going through. And so if I'm going through it, I'm going through it. I don't know what to say beyond that. Like
no, so my shrink told me something so important the other day, and she said that.
Can I tell you something? When I refer to my shrink as a shrink, when I tell him you are a shrink, you know, they're like, the other day my shrink finally told me, hey, you know, shrinks don't like being called shrinks. You could say doctor, you could say therapist.
Let's use therapist.
No. I wasn't trying to correct you. I just felt sad, you know. Like, because I'm one of those people. I have night blindness, so a lot of times, you know, if I see any headlights coming, I think it's a rickshaw, and I try to wave it down, thinking it's a rickshaw or a taxi, but actually it's a Mercedes or a Bentley. And then I imagine that, oh my god, this person must feel so bad that they worked so hard to achieve Bentley status, but I just thought they were a taxi. So I feel that's what a shrink feels.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I completely understand that, like, shrink is like a pejorative anyway. Like, sure. Anyway, coming back to what my therapist was telling me, she said something very important, and again, it was like a light bulb moment for me. She said, you know, it's these little things that you do, they need to feel like achievements. That you don't need to achieve achievements, as in, you know, they need to feel like you've accomplished something, not achievements per se, but they need to feel like something that you've done. You don't need to do that every single day. So, for example, cleaning your house. Cleaning your house is it needs to make you feel like you're okay to rest on that that sphere. So, cleaning your house is something you cannot look at as an achievement, because that will frustrate you, because you will need to do it every single day. Like Bartan Kiya, you feel happy, and then in the next, there was this really funny Kusha Kapila video where it was quite funny, where she sort of does a couple of dishes, and then it's basically a parody of these horror films where as she's about to leave the kitchen, suddenly there's like a whisper, Kusha, and like it's like 3 more dishes that are calling out to her, and she's like, where did these 3 dishes come from? So something like that, something as regular and necessary as that, it's very important to detach your sense of accomplishment from those, because you will never feel like, for me.
But wait, tell me if I understood this right. You mean, so if my reason to clean my room should not see it as a chore, but actually clean it because I deserve to be in a better space?
No. So here's the thing. If you're seeking that sense of rest and comfort and joy from some activity that you're doing, that needs to be detached from something that you're doing, that you need to do every single day. Because what will end up happening is, if you, and it wasn't so much of a Bible that she gave me, but she gave me an example that if you're seeking joy out of cleaning your dishes and doing jhadu pocha and your house being clean, what will end up happening is, the moment your house isn't clean, which is like by the end of the day, you will again not feel happy. So while you continue doing that, but don't rest your hopes on that activity. Rest your hopes on something that will give you joy for a couple of days. For example, cleaning your bathroom. You don't need to clean your bathroom every single day. It'll stay for a couple of days. And then every single day you see a clean bathroom, it gives you that sense of, I cleaned it, it just makes me feel better.
No, I get it. A lot of times I hear the same thing they say about exercise, right? Like a lot of times everybody hates exercise, at least. Okay, not everybody. There are total gym rats, but you know what I mean. People who hate exercise, the thing they tell them is, or even I feel this is, you don't need to exercise because you hate it. You need to exercise to a point where you can't do without it, where it actually, where right now you don't feel good exercising, but then you need to get to a point where you exercise to feel good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I get what you're trying to say. Like the motive behind you doing something needs to be addressed instead of the act itself.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I just want to maybe steer the conversation in a direction where, while self-love is important, I think self-love and self-care is also very subjective.
And selective sometimes.
Sure. No, I mean, there is this, I feel like there's this notion that, it's intrinsically linked to resources. And I sure, sometimes it is, but I want to know what you feel about it. Like, I feel like self-care is what you can do as a person with the resources you have, as an activity or an indulgence. And like I said, it's a choice, whether it's an activity / indulgence that you can indulge in, that you can do within your own means. And there is, I guess, there are many ways which are not buying something expensive, or spending money.
Exactly, which is why, when you said indulgence, I know I don't do anything apart from food. Again, I know there is nothing I do to technically treat myself.
But let's talk about the food. Let's talk about the food.
Sure. I get it. Okay. So for me, what happens is, again, if I'm lacking motivation, if I'm lacking in life in general, what happens is, a lot of times with food, I made that sort of a connect where, I'm a perfectionist when it comes to food. Otherwise, there are very few things. Again, I feel like I'm very selective. I can't say I'm a perfectionist and it can be a blanket statement for every department in my life, because I'm not. In fact, sometimes it's so fractured. Like, I'll give you an example. I'm someone who will let my room get messy. Yeah. But my kitchen has to be spick and span. It's very weird. So sometimes what happens is, when I'm giving my roommates or flatmates grief about the kitchen being messy, I feel so fucking hypocritical, because my room is not the epitome or paragon of cleanliness. You know what I mean? So a lot of times I feel very like what's the word? But like duplicitous, or like what's the word? Like I feel very like half and half about everything. Like for example, being a germaphobe, I there are certain things or certain parts of my body I feel like a germaphobe about, but there are other parts that I don't feel about. So it's a very I'm a little crazy like that, but sorry, I just went into this direction and I don't know how to come back. Your question was self-care. Sorry, indulgence. Food. But with food, what happens is I have a very strict or stringent way of looking at it. For example, if I'm looking to, I'll give you an example. I recently was craving KFC. Yeah. I went to Zomato. 3 pieces of fried chicken is some $600, which seems like too much right now. For some, actually, KFC is pretty shitty. You know what I mean? It's not the best. It's just KFC when you're emotionally vacant and you have a void in you, it feels great. Sure, it hits that spot, but it's not like, oh my God, this is the best fried chicken in the world. You know what I mean? And suddenly in my head, I was like, okay, you know what? I can make KFC at home. You know, and then I'll get all the ingredients I need. I will go through all the recipes I need to, and then consolidate and make one recipe that I think will be right for the way I want it. And then I will. So basically, I do the whole 9 yards for things I care about. And again, I can't think of any other example other than food. But with food, I really do that. Like if I want a specific thing. So basically again, when I'm on a manic depressive day, you know, when I do that, suddenly the whole routine, I feel great accomplishment. You know what I mean? Even though I get it, in the end, I might have not done anything in my 24 hours apart from frying some chicken. I get it. To someone, but again, like you said, it's subjective, right? For someone, I had a friend, I'm not kidding, such a lovely boy. We were in college, and I don't again mean to take this in a dark way, but his brother and father died in a bike accident in a horrible way. Okay, it wasn't like I know there's no good way or bad way to die, but they could have died a less deathful death. You know what I mean? And I'm not kidding. I saw him, and he was crippled with depression. Like when I saw him after I just teared up when I saw him after 5-6. He had the most beautiful energy about him, but that one incident broke him so much, dude. I saw him after 5-6 months. He looked like a hermit. Like his beard had grown out, and dude, there was 6 days, 7 days where he couldn't get out of bed. His depression took over to a point where, you know, a young fucking college going boy, he reached a point where he started getting bed sores. Can you believe bed sores? He was so fucking crippled by his depression. He couldn't get out of bed for days and days and days, to a point where he started getting bed sores. That's insane. You know, the bed sores are something you get if you're in a hospital for 60 days and you're not flipped over like a pancake. You know what I mean? But so I know how manic depression can be. You know, it can kill the tiniest shred of motivation in you, you know, which is why, again, for me, self-care boils down to the most minute things you can do to yourself. In fact, you know, I remember if you ever watched Twin Peaks, of course, Parks and Recreation made the treat yourself famous, you know what I mean? But Twin Peaks had a great, every day just do one thing for yourself. It could be literally
the smallest.
Have an extra donut, you know.
Just
do it. You know, it could. And I am not saying this without thinking about a person who is manic depressive right now, because I know it's easy to say, oh, have 2 donuts instead. But for a manic depressive person, this sentence might not make sense. I'm saying it could be something as simple as, I don't know. I don't even know what to say, but on days that it's bad, I feel like just cutting yourself some snack. And having some, dude, and on one level, I hate therapy is because it gives me hope. You know? Sorry.
Okay.
But, no. I'll tell you where I'm coming from. It's just that when you go and telling your therapist that, hey, it's been 6 days, I've not been able to get out of bed. I'm either constantly crying or I'm constantly ecstatic and happy, and all of it is happening in my bed. You know what I mean? And on days like that, put yourself through therapy, and then you learn, hey, this is a phase. You will get out of this, and life does get better, and you will be better. And so it gives you hope sometimes. And any little thing that just gives you even a tiny dose of, you know what, I'm glad I did this. That's self-care to me. That's it. Like,
yeah. No, and I could do with hope, because see what's happened again. What I'm going to say might come across as, a lot of privilege, but we all find ourselves rooted or anchored to, that list of a couple of things that we do that make us feel better. And for me, one of those things was water as in, swimming.
Sure.
And it's so weird, it's so inexplicable, but that always gives me joy. And me, like that feeling of me being underwater, blocking out the noise. And I haven't been able to swim for like the past 2.5 months, and it's that one thing that used to root me, and that used to kind of give me
God, you
that
must be like
spark
a
of joy.
gorgeous merman. I have to know. Do you wear a cap, or your hair just
No,
is that beautiful
I have
flowy thing?
No, I have to wear a cap, and I look like a weird embryo.
No, I suddenly imagined you underwater with your flowy hair like shape of water.
No, cannot. No, but so that's the thing. Now, when that goes away, and I can understand where, a lot of people get that little spark of joy from a walk in the morning.
Yeah.
You can't go out and walk in the morning. You can't do that. So what do? You can you number by number, equity by equity, find a replacement? You cannot.
Yeah.
And when you cannot, then my way of kind of figuring things out is just keep trying things till you find something that gives you
sticks.
That sticks.
Yeah.
And have I found something that gives me exactly that joy? No, of course not.
Yeah.
But and maybe that's why I'm struggling, because I haven't found that exact replacement.
Yeah.
But the point is, in spurts, since I've tried a couple of things out, the point is it's given me the little bit of that power to kind of stay afloat. Otherwise, I would have sunken. I would have gone under for sure. Yeah. And yeah, like my hope is just that I can go back to doing that one thing that that kind of gave me that joy. For example, just a simple thing that gives me joy is dressing up and going out. And that going out can be anything. It can be going to work. But the act of dressing up and going out, stepping out of the door, gives me such a sense of purpose. But sure, I tried dressing up a couple of days, and I discussed that even on the podcast, where wearing shoes at home, like it used to give me joy.
Yeah.
But if I'm just wearing shoes and just staying home, it's not giving me that joy. It's not anymore. I mean, it's just
it wears off.
And
that's exactly what I was telling you earlier. That now that it's again, see, we all in life have like, there are existential questions that pop up, and then suddenly you find out how mature you are by how well you answer or live those questions. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the real challenge is when you get used to it. Once you get used to it, then what? Like I'll give you shit. Okay, I'm not going to give you another like depression, suicide kind of example.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm so sorry I've been doing that lately, but you have to understand it's such a large part of my life right now. And as much as I'm trying to keep it off the table or at bay, it's just, you can't imagine how deep I've suddenly found myself in. And these are all situations that you don't feel like you've descended into gradually. A lot of times with me, I will go through days of like suicidal thinking without realizing I'm doing it. And then bam, suddenly I realize that, hey, I actually spend 2 to 3 hours a day thinking about this. You know what I mean? Again, sorry, I'm not being an alarmist. I'm just trying to. This is my way of like not letting it wear off. You know what I mean? I keep it fresh so that I know this is a problem. I'm looking at it directly and I have to address it every chance I get. Which again I feel like is my version of self-care. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's the once the novelty wears off is where the real work comes in, which isn't anything, right? Think about relationships also. Everybody has their honeymoon period. Everybody has their this, and the real work starts when actually you get accustomed or acclimatized to once you're not deriving joy out of that particular thing, or you've done it for a while. And I feel like right now what you're saying I totally relate to. Like that's what I'm going, okay, now I know that I need to be patient, I need to be this, I need to be that, but for how long? It becomes there's suddenly a but for how much and for how long. So I don't know. I guess again these are all questions and moments we can only answer by living them. We can't really have answers to these things. So just that's the kind of faith I was talking about earlier. Having that kind of faith or hope that you just know that you will come out of this and the world will get maybe better or not better, but you will just deal with everything in a better way for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
God, sometimes I'm so sorry. Sometimes, Srinendra, I can visibly hear that I bumped you out. I'm so sorry. Do you want to change our time from Monday morning? Are you sure you want to talk to me on Monday morning? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Just ask me to shut the fuck up so many times. Ugh.
No, but like I wouldn't like it if I'm told to shut the fuck up and I'm talking about.
I would never tell you to shut the fuck up.
No, that's what. That's neither would I. You know. But yeah, since we are talking about self-care, let's talk about just different things that give you joy, and let's talk about that. And okay, I'll start.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and this is, I really, there's I would say an acquaintance, not a friend, who I saw, who works, who's at FTII, and things are completely like locked down there, obviously.
Wait,
and,
FTII is the film one or the fashion one?
No, film one.
Okay.
NIFT is the fashion one.
Okay.
So, so I mean. So he put out a message, like a story saying that, things are completely have been under lockdown, and obviously nothing's happening. No one's teaching, no one's doing anything active over there. So he's locked down, and the only thing that he's managed to do, the only way in which he's managed to stay afloat, is he's just like consumed like content. Like he's watched like movies after movies, and as a result of that, what he's felt is this new breath of life where he
towards his own work.
He's seen new images, he's seen like
I fully relate.
And that is for me also that is so important. Like watching newer stuff, watching stuff that gives me joy, not just joy, like watching stuff that's new, that's fresh, and a large part of my work is visualizing, and as a result of that, it's kind of given me a lot of joy. And it's not just about films; it's about short content. It's about newer anything that's not been done before. And that's when I started watching. Coming back to She-Ra. I'll talk about that for a moment.
Yeah.
Last week, I binge watched 5 seasons of this show.
This is on Netflix? Is it on Netflix?
This is on Netflix.
Okay.
I cannot tell you how much joy I got out of watching it. Yeah. It's not meant for adults. It's not a Rick and Morty. It's not a, something that's written like to, sort of like Archer or whatever. Things that really, really get our attention, people who are like our age. But it's so beautifully crafted. It's meant for kids. But I wish, and I'll give you examples of why I'm saying what I'm saying. I wish that I had something like this when I was growing up. Why? Because one, there is just so much representation, like in terms of ethnicities, because you see characters that are coded Asian, you see characters that are coded African American, and one is that just across ethnicities. Second is there are no unrealistic body types in this entire scenario.
Love it.
And you see women who are pear-shaped, you see men who are bigger than normal, you see women who are tiny and petite, you see all kinds of people. Then the kind of relationships and the kind of no judgment sort of world that exists in this universe is so beautiful, because for example in a prom it's totally normal for two straight girls to take each other as dates, two straight boys to take each other as dates, with nothing sexual happening in the midst. At the same time, same-sex parents are like so normal. So and it's never done with this mode of activism. It is just so seeped in. Oh, so this is the universe. This is how it is. And that I loved it. And because
do you watch a lot of anime, or this is?
So I watch a lot of anime cinema. I don't watch a lot of anime television. So I know anime television has a lot of that. Anime cinema, not necessarily, but So because I saw that, and just like the complexity of relationships, the idea of grays and blacks, and that every character kind of, there is no clear like, oh, so this person's good and this person's bad, because everyone has a redemption arc. Everyone feels something. Everyone feels there is a logic to everyone's choices, and the choice may harm someone, but there was a logic to it. And that just blew me away, because when I started watching it, I was like, yeah, this is like, I'll take like till the end of the year to finish this. But I got so beautifully hooked into it. Because I just wanted to explore more of this universe. And I kept wondering, if I had watched something like this when I was growing up, I would be a far well-adjusted child while growing up, like with better handled emotions and expectations, I guess.
I tend to feel like that about Inside Out. Whenever I see Inside Out, I was like, oh my God, I wish I would have seen this movie as a child. At least 10 therapy session kam rehta tha. But I totally get what you're saying, because my knowledge of anime extends to only Studio Ghibli, and then I don't watch.
Oh my God, yeah.
I don't even know if that is called anime, honestly. But like, that's it. I know the entire Studio Ghibli movie. Which also, for people who don't know, just blindly watch it. It's on Netflix. All their not all, but most of them.
No, most of them are now. Most of Miyazaki is now.
Netflix. Yeah, Miyazaki movies. And but then last year, someone told me about this show called Neon Evangelion. Have you seen this?
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it. Yeah.
I felt every single thing you said about She-Ra. I was like, oh my God, this is a kid's show. But it is probably one of the most philosophical things I had ever seen in my life. So I was blown away. But sorry, I'm just going to backtrack a bit. You know what you said about your friend in FTI and all? Because I'm also trying to be a scriptwriter. I also have been watching my thing is, I've always been watching movies and TV shows, and you know that. Like, and I don't watch. I watch right now. I watch Beverly Hills, Real Housewives, but I will also watch an extremely indie Chilean movie, or you know what I mean. So my range, I'm saying, without sounding cocky, is very broad. Like, it's very broad. And dude, I have somehow managed to, in this lockdown, anything amazing I see, I've somehow managed to, being bipolar, I'm 50-50. What I've managed to do is 50% I feel, holy shit, I will never write something great. You know what I mean? That kind of stress. And 50% I have this super cocky, unabashed confidence that the moment this lockdown ends, I'm going to sit on my laptop and bang out a movie script and 2 TV shows in like a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course, I have to wait to see that which one I'm going to pick. But I have been consuming fuck tons of content, and that has been we are kids of the 80s. You know what I mean? I sometimes don't think other decade kids understand what's it like to consume pop culture. I know how limited my point of view sounds when I say something like that, but we were there. We were there at the advent of a VHS and a VHS tape. And I felt like for us consuming pop culture, you know, it was just so like important back then. Like whether it was Madonna, whether it was like E.T. or anything, we just wanted to consume everything from comics, from books, because it was the first time that things had started happening.
My perspective on that is a little different. I'll tell you why. Because so I'm a little more of a child of the 90s.
Okay.
And in what sense, I'll tell you. Also realize that I grew up in largely in the 90s. The only pop culture I could consume was whatever was available on, like, so I didn't have like we couldn't afford cable till like the late 90s, so like 98ish, you know. So I didn't know what cable television was. I didn't, like, you know, I would hear of things. I would hear of Sony, and I would hear of Star Plus and all of that. So we only got like a cable connection once, like I think it was 99. So as a result of that, and initially,
wait,
you know,
sorry, you said 99?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
insane. Okay.
Exactly. So my only touch point was like DD1 and DD2. Like, and DD2 was like the ace. Like, you know, there were shows, like there were cool shows on DD2, and there was literally nothing on DD1. And DD1 was just about, like, I remember my idea of pop culture was Shaktiman. I used to love Shaktiman, like to the point, you know, if I'm going back, I remember when I was, I think when I was 10, 10, that's when Shaktiman was on. I used to have like horny dreams about him. And
about Shaktiman?
Yes.
Do not judge me. I'm so sorry. You just said in this episode, never ask me to shut the fuck up, but shut the fuck up.
No, just hear me out. Okay, now you're getting judgmental.
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So, because, I remember having dreams where he would come to the house, to my house, my home, and talk to me, and that would make me happy. And I remember hugging him and feeling good about it. Then there was this show called Captain Vyom, which was like a knockoff of Star Trek. Yeah. But again, like today, if I watch it, it was so far ahead of its time. And I remember at that time, I was so fascinated by these, like it was about these 11 or 13, I don't remember the number, sort of prisoners, and each of them had like different powers. And the character design was so beautifully thought out, because you know, there were like these masks and, you know, prosthetics, and even like today, if you look at them, obviously they're kind of gross.
Did it also have Villain Soman?
Yes, he was Captain Vyom. So that was my limit to pop culture. But because it came so late in my life, even today, I can't help but feel this sense of joy when I get to watch whatever I want to watch at whenever I want to watch, without a sense of, oh my God, I can do that. Like, for example, the fact that I have, you know, if I want to watch, a Hayao Miyazaki film, it's right there. I can just watch it when I want to, rather than wait for when it will be screened.
Which is why I feel so. What I said was very limited. You know that, we 80s kid has first access, but I'm actually very jealous, and I always wonder what would have happened if we were born in this age. You know what I mean? Because trust me, and again, I'm not being cocky, but like my friends look at me for music, for books, for recommendations. I'm the recommendations guy across the board, with my friends, with everybody, you know, like, and I get it why. Because again, I will tell you why to watch Big Boss also, but I will also tell you why to watch some fucking Bolivian movie that I really liked recently, like things like that. But I feel like if I had that power now, because see, like you said, right, for me, DD Doordarshan was like Sunday morning, okay, you get Laurel and first Tom and Jerry. Okay, we used to wake up at 7:30. There used to be Tom and Jerry, followed by Laurel and Hardy or Charlie Chaplin, like black and white classics, followed by Mahabharat, followed by Surabhi. That alone is so much range, like suddenly. And I'm not even getting into the Wagle Ki Dunya and all this, but I feel like our consumption was just so rich. I've seen Captain Vyom, I've seen Shaktiman also. It's just by the time Shaktiman had happened, I remember I had kind of started smoking maybe. So whenever he would say "Gutka mat kha," I used to feel terrible. I used to feel so fucking shitty. Like, that's not self-care, Shaktiman.
Yeah. No, so here's the thing. Like, I've spoken many a times about how obsessed I, used to be about the Oscars, and I am about the Oscars. But imagine a time like today. Obviously, I watch all the as many of the movies, as many of the films that I can before the nominations come out. I do my prognosticating much prior. But at that point of time, it was about watching everything that gets nominated rather than like making your own guesses. I had that power to see. Like, I remember when the ceremony would happen and this segment of, let's say, best costume design would kind of come forth. You would see like those costume sketches, and that would blow my mind to see, oh my god, like this is what it was, this is what the sketch looked like. And then they would have a snippet of how it actually looked in the film, and then that would blow my mind even further. And today I'm so fortunate to feel, to kind of, for example, I watched this film called End of the Century. And it is actually an LGBT film, but the fact that it's an LGBT film is very not important in the larger scheme of things. It's very similar to Weekend, where, it's a meet cute and like people discover. So when I was watching the film, I just felt like it was written so beautifully and it was edited so beautifully because it was so intimate. And even the shots, it's shot so beautifully because it's meant to be like, it's almost like you're part of their bedroom, it's
I
not,
love the poster. I just looked up the movie while you're talking and I love the poster a lot.
Yeah, so when I watched it, I kind of felt like in an ideal world, this should definitely get nominated for like an original screenplay Oscar. But like that feeling of watching it today and not waiting till it's become a big thing and then watching it, it just felt so good. It felt like, oh my God, I have all of this at my behest and I cannot ask for it. But I want to say this. I often beat myself up about it, and I know it's wrong to do that, about this one fact, that I feel like I question myself on how the more I have these things that make me happy, I didn't have all of these and I was much happier then. And the more I have them, I still, the more resources or the more number of things,
more access you have to
access to things which are essentially self-care, I feel more lacking. Yeah. And I question myself sometimes. What do you have to say to that?
That's just human. That's human nature, Shreyas. It's the classic. Nothing satisfies. You know what I mean? Nothing cuts it, basically. Even sorry, I just keep reading. But right now, watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, these are people who $20 million houses, $30 million houses. They eat sushi for fucking breakfast. You know what I mean? They have their life, I've seen their dogs wear clothes that probably combined my wardrobe might not cost, But what I'm saying is, I feel like it's illusory, like satisfaction, or the pursuit of happiness is illusory a lot of times. So nothing ever cuts it because, like I said, even with the pandemic in mind, like in the start, I felt like, wow, it's in the first 2-3 weeks, I was like, holy shit, we are out of the rat race right now. We can actually just take a breather, and especially living in a city like Bombay, to get the not privilege, but to get the opportunity to just the government to tell you that, hey, sit back, relax, don't do jack shit, don't go to work. Sure, for people who are working from home, great. But you know what I mean? For the first time, they said, calm the fuck down,
Yeah.
it felt great, right? But with it came like, यार मैं कितना movies देख सकता हूँ, यार मैं कितना ये कर सकता हूँ, how much can I, you know what I mean, honestly. But I feel like there are certain things I feel like they endlessly give me joy, you know what I mean. I know that till date I still derive as much joy out of now. Of course, what I'm trying to say in terms of pop culture, I feel binging culture has ruined it for us a bit. But I feel like even today, like I actively listen to music or look for new music at least for an hour every day. And sometimes when I hear a song that I instantly love, I cannot describe that rush. And it's the same rush I used to get as a 5-year-old. Everything else, when you grow up, you start feeling like you don't feel as much. You know what I mean? You don't appreciate the beauty of things as much. But food, music, and pop culture, minus the binging bits, I feel like I derive immense joy out of. So I feel sometimes the trick is to not overdo it, because
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I totally know what you mean,
and that's applicable to what? Look at drugs. Drugs are great. You know what I mean? But
yeah, we are not saying we recommend drugs, but
no. Wait. I'm not condoning drug use. I'm just saying I love.
Okay, let's talk about smoking. I think that's a better.
Weed.
That's a better,
with weed. You know, when it was new, I was like, this is beautiful. I am living on a whole different existential plane right now. And I enjoy music so much. And I can taste food so much better. And I'm so hungry. And, but the moment I started doing it too much is when I stopped enjoying it. You know what I mean?
True.
The moment... cigarettes, smoking, you take it. The moment you start doing something to a point, and I will even tell you that things that are looked at as good, sometimes even when I'll give you an example. My mom, okay? My mom is one of those fitness people who actually doctors tell her to calm down. I'll give you an example. She's got a busted knee, okay? And my mom thinks that if I let the doctors tell me that something is wrong with my knee, then I need to prove them wrong. So she will go out of her way to fucking exert and do more exercise and more this. And sometimes I'm not kidding, dude, her knee looks like a small football. And she thinks it's, you know what I mean? It's unhealthy. It's unhealthy.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's that constant, even something healthy you can do too much of and overdo.
I agree. I completely agree.
So
I completely agree.
I feel like sometimes, I'll give you an example. I just saw this movie Vast of the Night, okay?
I haven't watched it, but I'm very intrigued.
For me, horror movies come by far and apart, like good horror movies don't come. And then I've been hearing this online indie buzz about this movie called Vast of Night, and it's like a great indie horror or thriller or whatever. And all these days, I just felt like, you know what? I'm watching so much junk. I don't want to watch it. And I did not watch it. Yeah. Even though it's there, I can go to any fucking, like you said, we live in a time where anything is accessible now.
Oh my God. Okay. So sorry. I will tell you which film I was talking about. Okay. Because I kind of made up the whole shit about the end of the century because I couldn't remember. Okay. So there is this film, and because you said horror, it kind of reminded me. So there's this film called Viviparium.
Okay.
It is Viviparium. I am for Mumbai.
Okay.
It is a weird ass movie. It's got Jesse Eisenberg, and it's just the design of the film is so unique. It's so beautiful. And if I give you the log line to it, you won't
I don't get the name. Viviparium.
Yeah, Viviparium is basically, I think it means like a chamber.
I just looked it up. Vivarium. Okay.
Oh, Vivarium. Yeah, Vivarium was the film. Sorry. It's my bad. Yes, Vivarium. So the logline is so weird, which is essentially this couple. They find themselves like in this very like manicured sort of a neighborhood where no one else lives, and they can't get out of that neighborhood. And like, that's it. Either they are the only residents in this like vast neighborhood where there are identical houses and all of that. And obviously something sinister is at play. It's like a mind fuck overall because the design is beautiful. I love films that create an imagined universe. And I love it when it's created in a rich way without spoon feeding. For example, Mad Max Fury Road, where just like Charlize Theron's character was so beautifully crafted without having any flashbacks. So I think that film was so it hooked me in. But continue with what you were saying. It was Vivarium, not Viviparium, as I was saying. Random, like I don't know where I got that word.
Dude, it happens all the time. And last night I fucking watched this movie, loved this movie, and I forgot the name right now. So it happens. But that's also because we consume so much shit. Yeah,
so much. Yeah.
So many times I'm like, dude, my favorite movie of that year was, and then I'll give you an example. Robert Pattinson, 2 years ago, Good Time. Do you remember? It was
my favorite. God, the Safdie brothers.
Yeah, it was my favorite movie that year. Yeah. And every time I'm about to recommend it to someone, I suddenly go like, was it Good Night? Was it Great Time? Was it good fucking time? What was the name of the movie? But what I'm saying is, again, all these days I wanted to watch it, but I somehow felt like I won't appreciate it in the moment. But last night I was craving, there was dead quiet outside, and I was like, what, I think I'm ready. And I saw it then, and it's like perfect. I just saw it. So I feel like
good film, then I'll watch it. I'll watch it tonight, in fact.
I don't know. I a lot of times I sometimes watch something and I know this is one of those things I like, but other people might not be too hot on. And I felt like this was one of those movies. But it was lovely. It was lovely, and it just felt like treating yourself to dessert when you deserve it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll never forget this line a friend of mine once said. A large part about being an adult is realizing that you can eat cake whenever you want. You really realize you're an adult the day you realize that you can eat cake whenever you want.
But and I think also much to your, I'm following the thought that you put forward. A large part of realizing adult, this not secret to adult happiness is also realizing that cake won't be cake if you have it whenever you want.
Exactly. I love the philosophical connotation of it. That, hey, you can have cake now all the time, but does that mean
you should have it all the time? Yeah.
And think
Will it
about
give you happiness all the time?
Thing you were denied by your parents as a child, and I don't mean monetary or physical things. Take, for example, sleeping late. As a kid, we all were like, no, I want to stay up more, I want to this.
Yeah.
But now as an adult, you can sleep whenever the fuck you want. But why do I spend so much time in therapy then talking about, I slept at 5 a.m. again, 6 a.m. I do it. But I hate it. You know what I mean? I'd rather fucking just wrap up everything and sleep by 10:30, 11. You know what I mean? I guess, again, overdoing it in some ways the opposite of self-care.
I agree because self-care is about taking a little bit of time out. It's not about making that a way of life, because your way of life is about a lot of things that are, you just have to, I guess, it's important for us to realize that there are things that are not joyful. They are part of a rut. They are, part of a humdrum routine. And when you have that, it's like what I say, I love weekends in weeks when I have worked so hard that on weekends I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But if every day is a weekend, then it's not, it doesn't give me that feeling of, oh wow, it feels good. It doesn't feel good.
Exactly. No, and that's the thing, right? Let's say that, and again, one door I think we opened during this conversation, but I feel like we've not shut it, and I don't know how to shut it, is, let's say today, one of the big things about self-care is not being hard on yourself or not being too harsh, okay? To yourself, yeah? But let's say I'm being hard on myself for not writing a book, okay? Or not sitting down and writing on my next screenplay. Let's say that's what I'm hard. And today I'll be like, you know what, I'll start being hard on myself, and suddenly my brain will go like, Farhad, stop it, Stop it, stop being hard on yourself. If you don't have the courage today, it's okay. Attempt tomorrow, okay? Great. I have self-cared in the moment, or at least on that day. Then the next day comes. And then the next day I do that again, where I start beating myself up, and then I'm like, self-care to the rescue, and I'll be like, don't be hard on yourself. And then the next day comes, and then the next day comes, and then you start realizing that, hey, am I using self-care as a crutch now? You know what I mean? Sorry, I don't think that makes sense, but sometimes it's like,
how do I be self-critical, okay, to bring out the best in myself, basically.
I know what you
Without bashing
mean. I
myself.
know what you mean, which is why, when it comes to, we just had an episode on therapy, but I just have to say, I think therapy is also part of self-care for me, and it obviously is, duh. But for me, it's so important to have enough gaps between, which is why I do it every 2 weeks, because for me, it's also important to take that lesson, take those learnings, every 2 weeks that I have my conversation with my therapist.
We talk so much about a therapist.
I know.
People are listening are like,
who are these people? But yeah, so it's important for me to also put that into play and do it independently, because sure, you taught me how to walk. Now let me try running for the next 2 weeks till when I come back and learn how to walk on another, in another sphere of things that I'm struggling with.
Got it.
That's what I have to say on therapy. Even I think overkill is, again, it's to each their own. Some people need therapy every 2 days maybe, but for me it's I like spacing it out, so I feel good about it, I feel like it's well deserved.
I know I go for therapy, but again, it's exactly to cure issues like this, what I just said, right? That okay, I'm not being self-critical, I'm not constantly bashing myself up, but there is a flip side to it. What do I do about that? You know what I mean? Where I become totally okay with not doing jack shit then. But that's when, again, like you said, therapy does come in. Like, there are medicines that make you do things. There are conversations that make you do things. There are perspectives and insights and everything. And honestly, sometimes we keep saying therapy, but these are all things, either they are accessible online in terms of knowledge or knowing, or a lot of times we know these things. Like today I know if I'm complaining about, I need to sit down and write my next screenplay, I know all I need to do is sit down and write my next screenplay. It's as simple as that. It's not rocket science. I just have to sit. And of course, knowing that maybe I'm not right now, what I'll do is I'll try and figure out why am I not sitting down and writing it. I know I have the potential. I know I'll write something great. I know all these things. Still, why am I not? I fall into that fucking quicksand pit, and then getting out of that pit is where, so basically I become counterproductive to my own progress in that sense. But again, I feel like it boils down to just one little thing. Just one little thing that tells me that today I have cared for myself in a way that makes me okay and that makes me feel peace. I just do it. I just do that. I don't question it. I don't try to look too much into it. I just do it. And more often than not, it does give me joy, whatever it is. Whether it's like, dude, there have been days where I just light a fucking diffuser lamp in my room and I feel, sorry, sudden spit went down the wrong throat. Wrong pipe, wrong throat.
How many throats do you have, you deep throater?
Oh my God, don't even go there. Oh my God. Dude, can I tell you something? Because we so many. Oh my God. Have you ever deep throated someone to a point where you feel like you need to go to a doctor the next day?
Yeah. I mean,
okay. I'm so happy to hear that. I once said that I fractured something inside my throat and then the thing was, I obviously got paranoid because I saw a Reddit post once about a boy who fractured a tiny bone that is apparently around your
Not that bad. Like I've had experiences where I've had a little bit of difficulty gulping. Soreness, like gulping for the next few days.
Dude, they need to have a separate medical glossary for gay boys and the feelings we feel. That medically, like the soreness from deep throating. Is there a word for that? I don't. I know it's just soreness, but it's a very specific soreness. You know what I mean? And in fact, I have a very, have you ever eaten khari biscuit or something that's jagged and sharp? And sometimes it goes down like a little harshly, and then the next day,
it's like it scratches while going down.
That's deep throating soreness, khari soreness.
Okay. Obviously,
I think we've reached the end of this conversation. Yeah. But anyway, on an ending note, I think the only thing that we can say about self-care and self-love is, just keep at it in terms of searching for that one thing. Sometimes it's, I think, the pursuit even that makes you feel better. Just going from one thing to another sometimes is nice. It's not about that one thing that you found and that just keeps, like, right now, I know I haven't found that one replacement to, swimming, but there are different things I'm trying out, and that's just helping me stay afloat, I guess. And like you said, I totally agree. In moderation, I think is great. Doing everything in moderation, and just otherwise you get too used to it, and then that spark of joy isn't there anymore.
Yeah, honestly, that pretty much sums it, man. I don't know what to say beyond that.
But yeah, I hope that you guys, everyone who's listening, you have a good week, and just take a moment and do something that makes you even slightly happy. It doesn't need to be ecstatic, but I
started oiling my hair.
That's great. I started
oiling my hair. It started with, because the summer was so harsh, and I'm a total fucking king queen for all your Navratan, and you know what I mean? I love cool shit in my hair. So I started with Navratan, and I was smelling like shit because of Navratan tail, but it was good.
Yeah.
And then slowly I started coconut oil, and I feel like, honestly, my hair is the best it's been in years.
Oh, I love coconut oil. I love coconut oil. I love pure coconut oil, because that's like, I don't use anything else.
Hair. You have beautiful hair. So I'll take it. Come on, Shinetru, tell us all, for self-care of hair. What should we do apart from
literally? I think I honestly don't do much. I think it's just coconut oil and regular conditioner.
Okay, but you don't do any dahi or like...
No, I really don't. I really don't. Like,
I'm sorry, how often do you shampoo?
I actually don't shampoo very often. I condition my hair very often.
Okay.
I shampoo because I have this thing where if I shampoo my hair kind of looks like, it feels very limp and heavy, and I don't like that. Okay. I like slightly, I like my hair to be slightly messy, and shampoo sort of doesn't allow that. So I shampoo my hair once in like a week or so, not more than that.
Okay.
I know it sounds a little disgusting, but...
No, it's not, because honestly, I've been reading up about hair care during this lockdown, because this is the longest all our hairs...
Yeah, hairs
have grown, and I was just going to say all our hairs have grown, and we can't get haircuts. So I did not know that, hey, my hair is actually nice and wavy, and because I've never grown it this much. And then suddenly combined with every alternate day shampooing, conditioning with sometimes coconut oil, I feel like, wow, I feel great. And can I tell you the smallest thing, which is my favorite feeling? I basically shower 2-3 times a day, but my night shower, my late night shower, if I've shampooed my hair then when I wake up in the morning, and the waft of shampoo on my pillowcase.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It's my favorite thing. Comfort on my bed sheets, and shampoo, conditioner on my pillowcase. Beautiful. Self-care. Okay. I guess that's it. Yeah. Another episode, another random episode where we started talking about one thing, but we touched on so many things. Amazing.
Yeah.
I hate it how I always start with the
it's all right. I mean, it's...
But towards the end, it's like I don't shut up. And sometimes, you have to message me, hey, Farhad, stop.
It's like, I've got to get to work.
I know you have to work. So we'll let you go. Okay. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening.
All right. Yes. Bye.
Take care, Sharita. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. We'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money. It really has been a great week this week. We've had 2 of our first international cricketers show up, people who have played for their respective sides. We had W.V. Raman come on Edges and Sledges, the cricket podcast. If you haven't heard that, you should be listening to that if you enjoy cricket. It's really one of the best out there. And you should also definitely check out Monty Pandithar, who showed up on Cyrus Says. That was another really interesting conversation that occurred. If you haven't been listening to a few of our shorter shows, please do that as well. Ashish Vidyarthi has been doing a great job for us. We got 30 episodes now on Begin the Journey. I think you really enjoyed that show. If you haven't listened to it, it helps you with understanding what's going on in this tough time and how to deal with it from a mental health perspective. We've also had some really fun stuff come up on the Smile India show. Shifa's been doing a lot of really good stories over there. Things would just make you happy, so definitely do check that out. And on the more serious side, make sure that you're checking out our regular shows like the Pragati podcast, All Things Policy. They're definitely going to keep you up to date on what's going on in this COVID world. And thanks for listening, and we hope to catch you again next week.
Are you constantly seeking happiness? Wondering how to make the most of every day? How not to let your inhibitions stop you from achieving your goals? It's now time to get your A game on. It's time to unlock your true potential. Tune in to the Empowering series with me, Zarina Poonawalla, to feel empowered in all genres of life. From behavioral skills to management skills. From health to relationships. From mental well-being to emotional well-being. And of course, your finances. I've got you covered. With these tips and tricks from me, Zarina, and true life stories from my amazing guests, you're bound to bring your purest to the table. Tune in to the Empowering series with Zarina Poonawalla every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you listen to podcasts.